Well, hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is DB333 and welcome back to Heart Divine 4, the New Order Last Days of Europe as the Ark Ostafrika. Hope you enjoy that I mixed up the intro a little bit. I don't know why, I just decided to do it. So yeah, last video. Something about werewolves. And shit, I don't know. Once we start investigations, which take a while to get started. But until then, it's time to clean out a colony, I guess. Our colony is rife with dissent. Slaves who don't accept their place at the bottom of the racial pyramid, tolerated neighbors who still fight for freedom, and even Aryans, our own blood, asking for reforms. All weaken us from within when we should be at our strongest. It's time to crush these pathetic dissidents and remind everyone not only their place, but also that the Aryans' destiny is to dominate Africa forever. As a concerted effort shall be undertaken from all offices of the colonial government in order to utterly destroy those who still haven't been vanquished in our earlier attempts. Well, there we go. Looks like we can put an extra gun towards something. Rifles. I think let's play. I am. So, yeah, let's get started. Trying to think what's been going on. I've actually been recording these parts the day before they come out, so recording's on Thursday. It should come out on Friday. It's pretty nice to record the part that went out on Thursday on Wednesday, and then kind of so on and so forth. Except I recorded Monday and Tuesday's vid on Sunday, I want to say. I think I did that at least. I might not have. I might have just done that in order as well. I don't know. But yeah, I've been doing that for a while, so I'm trying to think what's been happening. A cookie clicker came out on Steam, and that is very fun. I am very, very amused that it actually has come out. So I played that on Twitch for 4 hours. And I'm going to be totally honest with you all. We'll just check there, why not? I have something to show you all, okay? I'm still playing it right now. Let's go and get some mines. Relevant that we're picking mines right now for this, but yeah. So I should have a video going up on Saturday. It was supposed to be a test drive. It just turned out to be like the first part of my stream. I'm probably gonna play more Cookie Clicker, which is I did not think I'd be saying that, but I might be playing it more on stream. And we're probably just gonna hop off at random points and just kinda go from there. So there are a lot of jokes about lots of jokes. Lots of fun, I think. So, here we go. We've cleaned the colony, which I've always found it amusing to call a meeting of the General Bureau to take place in a few hours, forcing subordinates to scurry from their villas to his palace, desperate not to be the last to arrive. At last, trying their best to look unflappable, his underlings had arrived by helicopter and chauffeured sedan, and were seated in the palace's enormous conference room. The meeting was now without purpose, always feeling the knife hovering behind his back, who had taken to become suspicious of anti-national socialist tendencies among some of his officers. Eyes narrowed, he looked around the table, glancing at each man in turn, noticing who flinched and, more importantly, who didn't. Could anyone in the General Bureau have Spearist sympathies? To anyone but Hutig, that would have been unthinkable. Eyeing his generals, he made the mental note to have them put under even more thorough surveillance. Men, we live in precarious times. I will be brief. From the outside, we are threatened by the degenerates and the Judeo-capitalists. From Finn, on the borders of the Reich Commissariat, we are troubled by rebels, escaped Slavs, and so-called revolutionaries. For we may expect that the racial purity of our men will lead us to victory. Triumph is not assured. Prevail against the threats that face us, we must root out the cancer at the heart of Ostafrika. He paused, looking around at his men, looking for reaction. Bayer, looking nervous, always afraid of being replaced as a favorite. Dupont, grave-faced as usual. Chmielewski and Mengele, staring back at him with their dead eyes. Stifling an annoying sigh, Hutik continued. We cannot fight the barbarism. Our own men are tainted by the stain of reformism. It is imperative that we root out the liberals in our ranks like weeds. They are not fit to serve the Reich, not even fit to call themselves Aryan. We will cooperate with my intelligence operatives in identifying and liquidating these traitors. We cannot allow these subversives to undermine National Socialism. The conference continued, Hutik laying out a plan to eradicate the subversives, all the while feeling the spectral knife draw closer and closer to his flesh. He had to scour the taint of treacherous thought from Ostafrika, without mercy, without quarter, and before it was too late. I would just as soon have expected restraint from a hyena prowling around amongst corpses. Well, let's go ahead and do... Can even give us political power? Ooh, that right there. Civilian factors is here, as well over here. Let's go do the Ring of Fire. It is clear that Ostafrika is like a beast surrounded by fire. All around us, enemies lurk in the shadows, trying to take advantage of our numerical inferiority, like a swarm of bees bringing down a bear. Even our so-called allies can't be trusted. We need to increase the alert and tie to us all those who would perish alongside us in the eventuality of our defeat, increasing our support among the superior races as much as possible. The fate of the Afrikaner Aryans depends on it. Well, there we go. That said, we're going to get some command power, so I want to see if we can promote our guys. Let me check Bayer. Can I give him something? Can give him improv expert, so I guess I'll do that. Yeah, let's go on from here. Oh, and there goes Madagascar. And let's go ahead and make some examples. That did nothing. I think you might reduce rations later, perhaps. See if we, that'll get us some consumer good factories. In the meanwhile, invest into our GDP. Oh, the frame drops. I guess I did use up political power shit. I was saving up for it to further investigate these guys, but as the clocks chimed midnight, I'm sorry, I just had PTSDs to what midnight usually means with TNL. Hutik startled awake, almost falling out of his chair. His eyes painfully adjusted to the harsh white light, still set for his evening paperwork. Feeling his stomach shift turbulently as he stood, he blearily stumbled towards the dimmer to dull the lights. Slipping back in his chair, Hutik told himself that overwork had led him to falling asleep at his desk. Obviously, it had nothing to do with the cognac he'd been drinking since breakfast. Temples thumping, he looked over at the desk. trying to remember what he'd been doing before he dozed off. While looking back to him in a sudden flash of incandescent fury, after dinner he'd received a telegram from Germania insisting that he cease sending critiques of his fellow Reichskommissars. The pseudo-degenerates in their plush Mitte offices had threatened him, suggesting his constant criticism of those incompetent buffoons was tantamount to treason. Hands shaking with rage, Hutig poured a glass up to the brim of cognac, just to calm his nerves. How dare they suggest that? Down in his cognac, relishing its bitterness, Hutig felt the fire of hatred grow in his belly. Not only could he not trust Germania, but he was surrounded by enemies, each wanting to sink their knife in his back. The treasonous bastards in the other Reichskommissariats, the traitorous Boers, waited for their opportunity to slip free of the Reich, the slippery Italians up north. It was like being surrounded by a ring of fire, the flames advancing. Always advancing until the day they'd sear the flesh from his bones. He could not allow the degenerates and the traitors to prevail. Hutig leaned back slightly and immediately felt that horrific bone-rattling creak in his chair and stab into his brain like a million wicked needles. The blood rising to his face, something inside him finally snapped. Slowly he watched himself rise, grab the chair, and drag it out to the balcony into the bracing night air. Hauling it onto the marble parapet, Hutig used what remained of his strength to shove the enormous leather chair off the edge. Staring into the lush blackness of his gardens, Hutig heard the chair shatter onto the gravel below. Swaying from side to side, he lurched back inside and passed out on the office floor. His soul had gone mad. Alone in the wilderness, it had looked within itself, and it had gone mad. Well, damn, it was about time you did something with that fucking chair. I doubt we'll be making that creaking sound anymore. Well, let's expand the mines. If we want to keep everything under control, we need to ensure both that we have enough supplies for our weapons industry and that the slaves do not even have an ounce of energy left to revolt. In order to achieve these objectives, we shall further expand the mining concentration camps across our domains. With the tens of thousands of additional workers, we shall increase production rates in our economic gains, which will surely be appreciated by the central government and drastically reduce dissident, as those with the potential to fight against us are too busy with their pickaxe to effectively do anything. That's one way to do it. You can't have slave revolts if all the slaves are fucking dying. What falls faster, man or his shares? The men stood by the sill calmly and waited their turn to jump. A Tokyo Exchange secretary. Out with a crash. Well, that's what Japan gets for putting all their money in fucking Bitcoin. Or Dogecoin. Well, let's take a look at the world right now. South Africa shattered. The center wing is looking pretty strong right now. Captain Marcus Wiedemann vomited into the underbrush, narrowly avoiding getting it all over his uniform. When he received his new orders, desperately hoping for a transfer to Quelimane, he had instead found himself sent from his border garrison to this stinking shithole mine at the edge of Ostafrika. 20 demoralized retrobates to watch over hundreds of slaves, responsible for keeping the titanium flowing. It was no wonder he spent most of his days in an inebriated haze. Wiedemann wondered why he endured, why he didn't just pull out his Luger and put a bullet in his brain. After days filled to the brim with all the savagery and depravity the world had to offer, he was forced to relive it all again in his dreams. Feeling as though he had spent every second in a waking dream, Wiedemann had begun to wonder if he were going mad. And so it was that, staggering back to camp with vomit on his boots, Wiedemann was the first to see the men coming out of the trees. Suddenly death didn't seem so favorable. As the men shouted in their unfamiliar language, Wiedemann turned to rush into the bushes, despite understanding in a sudden burst of clarity that he could not escape, that these were his final seconds on Earth. Boots crunching in the hummus, Is that supposed... that must mean something else, because I'm thinking of, the food. It must be something else. He was suddenly reminded of the crunching of his boots in the snow as a boy in his native Thuringia. He felt himself drawn into a memory, tripping and falling in the snow, blooding his nose on a rock. For a moment he smelled the tweed of his father's coat as he was carried to a bed. So long ago now. As bullets ripped through him, roses of blood blooming into the front of his uniform, Captain Beanman fell heavy to the dankness of the forest floor. As his empty eyes stared up at the endless void between the stars, he was claimed by more profound darkness. Did he live his life again in every detail during that supreme moment of complete knowledge? I don't know, don't ask me. I don't work there. Well, let's go and purge the troops. Or, our enemies are... Your enemies are our enemies, excuse me. Then we'll purge the troops when we're finished with that. If we want to avoid anarchy, we must convince all superior races that, in truth, we have the same enemy. The subhuman slaves we employ in our factories, in our fields, in our very homes, all wait for the moment they perceive themselves as stronger. Not a moment later, they will slaughter us like cattle, Germans, Boers, and even Anglos. If we want to survive, we need to stick together and present a united white front against the black menace, threatening to swallow us from within and without. Ah! Well, that's, awkward. Let's see, our economy... I wanted to check factories. Right, it's this one. Still have literally nothing. Building? The Jews are winning. Where are they? I don't know. Spilling into the room, the golden light of morning jolted Huttig awake. Forcing his eyes open, breaking the crust that had formed, he gazed up at the whitewashed ceiling. After a moment, he wiped away the sickly tear residue that clung to his cheek and looked around. Somehow he'd ended up in bed. Someone carried him there after he passed out in his office. He felt his cheeks burn with shame, both from the indignity of being treated like a child and the added humiliation that everyone in the palace had probably already heard about it. Head thumping like a jackhammer, Huttig lay in bed for over an hour, staring up at the ceiling. He would have to reestablish his authority. He heard a tentative knock at the door. Although he didn't respond, he heard it creak open, and turned to see who dared disturb him. Bayer, fawningly shuffling towards him. Huttig wanted to yell at him to get out, but he just couldn't summon the energy. All he could do was croak. Tell me what you want. Rashkamazar, allow me to extend to you my deepest sympathies that you have been taken ill, began Bayer, sycophantic as ever, before he was stopped by Huttig's stare of piercing contempt. Even mired in the pits of the worst hanging over his life, he knew he still held power over the disgustingly corpulent Licksplitter. The General Bureau are concerned about the commitment of our Boer allies. I knew to bring it to you immediately. Yes, thought Huttig, so that you might squeeze a few kudos out of me. Pathetic. Must you bother me with every little thing? It is simple. Emphasize to them, in a propaganda campaign, that we fight the same fight, have the same enemies. The natives, they seek to destroy everything we have built, so to annihilate the Aryan future. You bring the Boers closer to us. Use whatever sources you need. Now get the fuck out of my room. Bayer sesquitly bowed out of the room, thanking Huttig for his wisdom. Huttig frowned after him, wondering if it was time to put Bayer out to pasture, or into a grave. As a leader, the men who seemed most loyal to you were the ones to watch. Groaning, Huttig fell back to continue staring at the ceiling, wondering if he'd find a new chair waiting for him in his office. After a while, feeling a little better, he telephoned for breakfast. The most you can hope for is some knowledge of yourself that comes too late. Well, let's thoroughly investigate Shank. Ooh, 100 for 1. That's a lot of crew population. Well, it's clear that the most important issue with local dissent is our crushing numerical inferiority. We can't hope to keep everything under control of our limited garrison, no matter the level of training, equipment, or sheer loyalty to the regime. We are, perhaps literally, outnumbered 100 to 1. We need additional manpower, and the best way to achieve this task is to enlist the help of those non-Aryans who have risked everything to stay loyal to us, or else risk losing everything to a local uprising. Well, Kemerovo's probably dead. That's kind of based. I'm tired of seeing them winning every fucking game. Yep, CSR took him out. And Berezniki's still in the game, although I know they're getting removed. RIP. I'm gonna miss Berezniki. The Thailand guy is fallen. We'll see what ends up happening there. Being slightly tipsy from the 3 glasses of cognac he had downed with his simple lunch of sausage and dumplings, regarded by him as a Spartan meal, showcasing to all his impeccable discipline, aside from the alcoholism, of course, Hutik circled a few figures on the document he was reading. Reports on the built-up of rebel guards in the interior were nothing compared to the Ostafrikan racial census. It was the most frightening he'd ever read. According to this, the only census conducted since the establishment of the Reich Commissariats, Aryans were still a minuscule minority in Ostafrika, even after the settlement programs. Though the racial purity of the Aryan clearly made them superior to subhumans, the natives clearly had an advantage in numbers. Of course, he'd always known that there were more natives than Aryans in Ostafrika, but the vague hypothetical was very different to seeing it written down in black and white. Chewing the pen, Hutik stared down the figures, and after a long time, circled the number of Aryans. Sighing, he began to type up a missive order, ordering the conscription of all Aryan males in the event of hostilities breaking out, which, of course, they almost certainly would. Although the Germans who had emigrated to Ostafrika seeking their fortunes on what they were promised was bountiful virgin land had been promised they would be exempt from being drafted, these were desperate times. Sorry, something happening in a Discord server. I'm kind of paying attention. Let's see. If they didn't pitch in and do their part to protect the Ostafrikan savages, they would lose their homes, their families, their very lives with slavering horde. Surely performing their duty to the Reich, international socialism was a small price to pay for safety. Even if it wasn't like they had a choice in the matter. Leaning back in his new chair, Hutik smirked at the thought. All Aryans should be willing to serve the Reich if needed, even if they needed a little push to do so. Ripping the complete draft from his typewriter, Hutik yelled for more cognac. He has to live in the midst of a incomprehensible, which is detestable. I think next we'll reinforce the Anglos. The Anglos now, under our rule, have proved loyal enough. In light of our lack of resources to keep a military watch over all new possessions, we shall switch to a lighter approach. Clifford Dupont, a prominent Anglo leader with views much in line with ours, will be appointed as the Colonial Valta des Zambezi. Well, mostly ceremonial office, as in his government will be under our complete control and surveillance. He will take up the task of keeping Rhodesia and Zambia under control using Anglo manpower, sparing us some divisions we can use to maintain control over our main holdings in Ostafrika. Anyway, yeah, that's fun. And I think we're about to run out of time. In fact, there goes a timer. Before we go, let's take a look at Cookie Clicker. That's a lot of fucking cookies. Goddamn. That's good shit. Anyway, thanks always for watching, ladies and gentlemen. If you like this video, leave a like. If not, feel free to dislike. If you want to see more of this content in the future, hit the sub button from uploads every weekday, as well as every Saturday. If you have any comments, feedback, concern, anything of the sort, leave it in the comment section below. I read all the comments I get. Appreciate any feedback you might have for me. God damn it, people are fucking adding me right now. If you have any comments, feedback, concern, anything of the sort, I already said comment section below. If you want to see me do Source Live, I have a Twitch. If you want to send me bucks money promote my Patreon. If you want to see me do Source chat, black. If you want to chat, play, or do anything like that, I have a Discord. All will be in the description box below. That's really it for now, folks. My name has been Dogbot33. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys next time. It's just muted. Might have just been like this already. I might have just not been paying attention. I don't know. Thanks always for watching. See you guys next time. Goodbye.